Hey folks, I'm Vasel and welcome to Best of Designers. And today we're taking a look at a board game designer who is, many times we take a look at board game designers or board game players and it's like, a nerd, a geek. Christophe Boelinger kind of breaks that mold. He looks like a surfer. He is a surfer. When you see him at a convention and he's, when you're picking out designers, sometimes you're like, that person? They're the designer? Christopher kind of walks in the room and just owns it. He loves making games. He makes extremely thematic games. A lot of his games I'm not a huge fan of, but there are some that he has done that are absolutely amazing. And today I want to talk about my 8 favorite games that he's designed. Number 8 is a game that I find okay at best, but it has done really well because of the strong theming, and that's A Dog's Life. In fact, it was just reprinted. My daughter likes this one a lot, in which you are dogs and you're running around town delivering newspapers and digging for bones and peeing and marking your territory. And like I said, the theme here is really strong. It was done many years ago, but just reprinted. That's A Dog's Life. Number 7 is Halloween Party. This is one of a few games that he did for the Blue Box line from Descartes Games. And this one here is essentially a juiced up version of Cockroach Poker, where I'm coming and I'm going to be offering you cards and you have to decide whether you'll take them or not because they're going to be good or bad. Kind of a trick or treat style theme. Not many of those games out there. Number 6 is Four Gods. This one just came out a few years ago. This is a very unique game in that it is kind of like Carcassonne, a tile laying game, but real time. So some really intriguing things in this game as you're all building this map together and building tiles out and then claiming areas on this map and as the 4 different gods in this game. It's certainly unusual. I don't know any other game like it. That's Four Gods. Number 5 is Earth Reborn. Now, if you've never seen Earth Reborn, when it came out, it was kind of like, what is this game? It was a giant, huge game full of miniatures from Z-Man Games in which some people were kind of locked in vaults that opened up in the future. I know, that sounds like another IP. But and you came out, and then there was like a tactical miniature style game, and there was a few zombies and mutant type things that you fought. And there was a gazillion pieces in this game. We're like, wow. But it never really took off. There was no expansions. Like, you would think there'd be more to it. But it still was a pretty cool experience, a neat game. That's Earth Reborn. Number 4 is such a vicious game, but I love it, and it's Fantasy Business. This is another one that's in the Blue Box Games from Descartes. And in this one, you are winning cards over the course of the game that are going to be different items that you're going to be selling in your fantasy business, swords and helmets and things. And then each round of the game, you decide how much you're going to sell these items for. However, only the person who sells them for the lowest price is going to get the money for that. So if someone else is selling the same item, you have to convince them, hey, why don't we both sell it for a higher price? And then one of you might write a lower price on top of that. It is a very interesting style game. It can be very mean back and forth, but I liked it. Fantasy Business. Number 3 is Dungeon Twister, the card game. Dungeon Twister, the card game, is pretty close to Dungeon Twister as a card game. Yes, it misses the miniatures that Dungeon Twister has, but they managed to put a lot of information on those cards, and I was very impressed by it. Number 2 is Archipelago, for some reason I can never pronounce this game correctly. This is his biggest game that he's done other than Earth Reborn, and it's his most Euro-style game. But at the same time, still, he manages to stick a bunch of theme in this game. In Archipelago, you are kind of exploring and building this new land together and building things, but at the same time, one person can decide to go the other way and foment rebellion. There's just a lot. There's like this. There's an exploration aspect to it, but also growing. It's a pretty big game, but a lot of fun. But my favorite game from him, I've already mentioned the card game, and that is Dungeon Twister. Dungeon Twister, I still remember the first time I met him at a convention. He said, let's play Dungeon Twister. I promise I will destroy you. And the answer to that is, yes, he will. Dungeon Twister is kind of like a chess-style game. There's almost no luck in the game at all, where you have 8 characters, and the original one just had 8 versus 8, but many, many expansions. They added many different characters. And you're going into this dungeon that is going to twist. The rooms are moving and turning around. You are trying to get your characters to knock out your opponent's characters using a very good card combat system, or to your opponent's end line, kind of like football, get past them and get out there. And there's different equipment and weapons that you can find, but it is very strategic back and forth. There's a lot of cool things. They made a sequel, Dungeon Twister, the prison, which was Dungeon Twister 2, which was essentially the same game, just came with miniatures. The first one came with stand-ups. So I didn't separate them because they are really the same thing. In fact, I have all mine in the same box. But this game is fantastic. There's no other game out there that's like it. That's one thing about Christopher. He does very unique style things, and it is my favorite game of his. Perhaps you have a different favorite game of his? Let me know in the comments. And I hope that you run into him sometime. Very nice person, Christopher. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching the Designer's Best, Christopher Boelinger, on the Dice Tower.